So this is my other video. I had to add another one. So this video is called how we finally get media coverage for Charles Booker. How a progressive running for a Senate seat gets coverage.
Oh, my story's out for you. I explained to you how these types of laws, like 150, would kill people. And the same folks that want to have the audacity to vote yes now voted for that legislation.
Gentlemen, I apologize.
My life matters too, Speaker.
3 minutes is up.
My life matters too, Speaker.
You are out of order. Your 3 minutes are up.
That was Kentucky State Representative Charles Booker on the floor of the State House last year, making remarks that prompted a Republican lawmaker to yell at him to, quote, sit down. Booker is now running in the Democratic Senate primary, looking to take on Mitch McConnell this November. He's one of a number of candidates seeking that nomination, among them progressive farmer and retired Marine Mike Breuer, and well-funded moderate Amy McGrath, a former fighter pilot recruited by Chuck Schumer. Booker is running as a staunch progressive who supports Medicare for all, a universal basic income, legalizing marijuana, and the Green New Deal. Yesterday, the hashtag Booker Beats Mitch was trending, with many linking to the video that officially announced Booker's candidacy and hammered Mitch McConnell.
This man knows more than anybody how to work the system in Washington. He's the architect, but he's done nothing for Kentucky because he's not your neighbor. He's not your brother. He's your friend.
I'm joined now by State Representative Charles Booker of Louisville, who is seeking the Democratic Senate nomination in Kentucky. Representative, tell me a little bit about your thinking about this race at this particular moment, and if anything's changed, do you think about the political terrain in the last few weeks?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And, you know, what I see in this race is an opportunity to really push for structural change, not just beat a terrible person like Mitch McConnell, who calls himself the Grim Reaper, but really get to the heart of the issues that plague my Commonwealth, and a lot of measurable indexes that...
Sorry about that.
And we're seeing a lot of protests now, a lot of crying out for justice, but it really goes to the fact that poverty is generational and that people are really struggling. And so we have a choice in this election to stand up for Medicare for all and fight for a Green New Deal and win universal basic income so that we can disrupt the chains of poverty that plague so many people. And I'm fired up to stand in that movement.
So I guess, the natural question here is about the politics of your state and the viability of this political program in a state like Kentucky. It's a state that does have a statewide elected governor who definitely ran as a moderate, I think it's fair to say, in 2018, although did run on Medicaid expansion. Your agenda is in a state that Donald Trump's very popular. He's plus 16 there. He carried the state by a lot. A lot of people will look at your agenda, they'll look at the state of Kentucky and be like, you are tilting at windmills. This is a fool's errand.
Well, I love when I hear that assessment because we're used to being ignored. People don't listen to folks in Kentucky. We are demanding justice. We're demanding accountability, but we want a brighter future just like anyone else. And so my message is very populist. I'm speaking to issues that are at the kitchen table. Listen, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've had to ration my insulin and nearly died from that. That cuts across party lines. And a lot of folks that supported Trump are supporting me because they know I'm going to fight for Kentucky for a change. And someone like Mitch McConnell has profited from our pain and sold us out in every way imaginable. Could care less if we die. And my biggest opponent, Amy McGrath, who calls herself a pro-Trump Democrat, doesn't have a clue about the challenges we face. So I'm excited to build this new coalition from the mountains in Appalachia all the way to the Four Rivers and even in the hood where I'm from. And it's exactly why we're going to win this race.
In Louisville, where you represent, there have been a lot of protests. I want to talk about the death of Breonna Taylor in a moment. Before we get to that, just your experience. I've seen on your Twitter feed you've been going to protests. We talked at the top about how there are protests happening across America in some pretty unlikely places, or places you might not anticipate there to be a Black Lives Matter protest. And I wonder what the view of this moment and street protest from the perspective of someone running statewide in Kentucky looks like at this moment.
Well, you're exactly right. And actually, right before this segment, I was in Estill County with some folks that were demanding justice for Black lives. And this is a part of Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky where it's over 99% white. And And what we're seeing in this moment across the Commonwealth is an understanding that we're interconnected. And that if we fight for the challenges that are facing communities like mine, we're going to uplift all Kentuckians. And, you know, I stood on the front lines and I was hit with tear gas, but I don't care because this is where my family is. Kentuckians are demanding real change. And we cannot have someone that would give excuses and sit on the couch like Amy McGrath has while we're dying and while our doors are getting kicked in and we're getting murdered in our beds. And so this is really about how do we show the courage to lead in this moment. And I'm just doing my part, and the Commonwealth is standing behind me to win this race as a result.
Breonna Taylor was a young woman in Louisville, an EMT. She had been on the front lines of the COVID pandemic. She was killed in the house along with her boyfriend after a no-knock warrant by 3 members of the Louisville Police Department. There have been no charges in that. There have been vigils and protests for Breonna Taylor day after day after day in Louisville before George Floyd's death and after. What is the status of that case, and what is your sense of what the official response has been thus far?
You know, there is a lot of frustration in our community because this is not the first time. This is yet another incident in a history of a reality where if you look like me, you're going to be seen like a deadly weapon before being seen as a human being. And folks are crying out. And I have stood up in leadership, of course, as a state representative, but also working with our state and local leadership to provide accountability, to push for a ban on no-knock warrants, and to push for citizen review of police shootings with subpoena power. But we got to get to the root of these issues. Why are we dealing with this trauma? We criminalize poverty, and we deal with institutional racism that dismisses and diminishes the humanity of so many people. And so my run for U.S. Senate is really to say that not only do we need to beat Mitch McConnell, but we have to transform our future so that we don't have to keep dealing with the trauma that Breonna Taylor's family and so many of us are carrying right now.
If you love peanut butter most, this cup has your name on it.
So, finally, he at least gets media coverage. I give credit to Chris Hayes for giving him an interview, which I should title this video Why You Should Vote for Charles Booker, because Charles Booker is spitting fire about why we should basically vote for him, why we should act, why we should vote for a progressive instead of a pro-Trump Democrat, and how he's actually going to bring change and how he's actually going to fight for rural Kentucky. He spits fire about his opponent, Mitch McConnell, and Amy McGrath, and he talks about policy. This is a good way for us to at least get hope that we can actually get a Senate seat, another progressive in the Senate. Let's help other progressives who are running for Senate win. Like, we need to help them win. We need to help Charles Booker win. We need to help Andrew Romanoff. We could have helped Kimberly Graham, but the reason why she lost because of fucking vote splitting. I know there's 2 progressives and like one of them should just drop out. It's hard to I chose Charles Booker because he has the more likely chance of winning, but I don't know. We'll see what happens in this race. Vote for Charles Booker in June 23rd. Let's help out progressives. Come on, guys. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.